Hey guys, I'm Tim. Today's tech tip video will be showing you how to install a TUFFY console in a Scout 2. Okay, so everything we have here is available on our website. This TUFFY console has the provision for a CD player or auxiliary options. We'll kind of walk through that. We do sell the standard console, which does not have that as well. This is our console mounting kit. So this will be the rear foot mount, and this is the front support that will mount it to the floor of your Scout 2. These are some of the accessories that we also offer. This is a switch panel that will go in instead of a CD player, and then you can mount your USB charge port or this style switch off to the sides. This is also another USB charge port mount, and that will actually go on the rear foot for the rear passengers. Some of the hardware we use, grade 8, just 1/2 inch coarse thread bolts for the feet mounts. These are 5/16 for the rear foot to the bracket, 1/4 inch, 1/4 by 1 inch for the mount in the front, and then for the cup holders we use the same mounts, and I'll kind of walk you through that as well. All right, so these are the tools you're going to want to complete your install. You need a drill. I just have an impact. This is not as necessary. I mean, you'll need a socket, a 3/4 inch socket, 1/2 inch socket, 7/16 socket, and a ratchet to drive those. 7/16 and a 1/2 inch wrench just to tighten the bolts to the brackets that hold the console to the brackets. We use a 2-inch hole saw. I'll kind of go over why we do that, and a 1/4 inch drill bit for the front mount holes, and also as a pilot hole for your hole saw. All right, so next step, forgot the tape measure. You'll need a tape measure. Get a tape measure. The first thing that you're going to want to do is drill your wiring hole. The reason we use a 2-inch hole instead of a smaller one, you could obviously use a smaller one if you want to. A lot of the trucks that we do have higher end stereos, and we'll run actually all of our stereo wiring, all the power cables, the RCAs, speaker wires, everything through this hole. It's always good to have, you know, a bigger than necessary provision for that, and that's why we run this. And then we also run a 2-inch grommet with kind of a wire pigtail thing on the back. I'll show you that in a minute. The measurements that we use when we're mounting ours is we'll use the center cover as kind of the basis for measuring back, and then we'll measure back 5.5 inches on center is where your wiring hole will want to go. This kind of makes sense with the CD player or the radio provision. Is kind of an angled slot, and it lines up perfectly with this area in the floor. So that's why we use it. So you'll use your 1/4 inch drill bit as a pilot, or whatever the pilot is on your hole saw, and start that first. Then we set this in here, punch your hole, and then we'll end up putting the grommet in that after that's all done. All right, so what we're gonna do now is attach our rear bracket to the bottom of your TUFFY console. You'll want the angle facing forward. This will make sense in a little while when we put it in the truck. But basically what we'll do is we'll take our 5/16 bolts, go through these back 2 holes here, and you'll just slide them through and start your nut here. Get those on there. These are a little long on purpose. When you're doing the rear USB charge port bracket, you'll actually attach that here, and it will just slide in right here and face backwards and hold your charge port. I'm not going to show you that, but it's pretty self-explanatory. There's 2 holes in the bracket, and they fit with these 2 mounting locations. Next, we'll be putting our front bracket on. You'll want the L part of the bracket facing forward, and it's going to mount on these bottom 2 holes there. The hardware that we use to secure that is a 1/4 20 by 5/8, and that just goes through the top 2 holes here and then through the console. It can get kind of tight with their holes provided are barely a 1/4 inch, so you might have to thread it in a little bit, but they do go in just fine. So you'll do that. And you can snug all this down with a socket and a ratchet. I'm just doing it hand tight by now for our test fit or our mock-in for the truck, just to locate these 2 front holes that we'll have to drill. But you can feel free to tighten it at this point too. This shouldn't have to come back off throughout the installation. It can just be assembled fully, and you should be ready to go. All right, so next, now that we have our brackets mounted, I did snug these up with a wrench and the socket. We're ready to put this in the truck, and we'll bolt down the rear feet first, and then we'll get the front aligned, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so for the rear feet, you're actually aiming for the seatbelt holes that are already in your floor. The way we designed our bracket is just to utilize as many holes that are in the Scout tub, so you don't have to drill as many to mount your console. So these should just line right up with those, and you'll get your 1/2 inch bolts that I talked about earlier, and we'll just drop those in. You can reuse your original seatbelt bolts too. I usually just put a washer underneath just to protect the powder coat so it doesn't chip while you tighten it down. But once you get these aligned and dropped in, I'll show you how to position the front. All right, now we're gonna drill our front holes. So to get everything lined up, you'll wanna make sure the front edge of your front bracket is pretty much in line with this indent for your tunnel cover. Just kinda, if you want, you can take measurements just to get it as straight as possible. Take a paint marker or a Sharpie, mark your 2 holes, and then we'll end up unbolting the rear of the console and taking it out so you can drill your holes without getting metal shavings all over everything. And it's just better to have it out of the way when you're using a drill. Okay, so we've got the console out of the way. Went ahead and drilled some holes here. This is the 2-inch grommet we use. It has provision on the back so that you can tape your wiring loom to it. It's kind of a nice little product. We'll put that in there. Now the main wiring that we run through here on every truck, any truck that's getting a stereo system will have a USB input. I usually run the 10-foot extension from the dash down the tunnel area, and that'll come up through this grommet and into the console. That's where having the bigger hole is nice to get these ends through. The other wire that we run is one from an auxiliary from our rewire harness, and that will actually power the USB charge port that we put in the front of the center console. So we run that wire in here too, and then we'll put an inline fuse along with it later on. And those are the 2 wires that we have for this truck. Like I said before, for other trucks, we run our stereo wiring through here, is why that hole is so large. You don't have to go that big if you only have 1 wire, but it does make it very handy having more room to run auxiliary wiring either in the future or now. All right, now that we've marked and drilled our holes, we're gonna install the front cup holder. This should come in your kit. You can use the kit hardware. I just usually use 1/4-20s, the short little guys. And when we bolt the bracket on, we bolt it in the lowest position on purpose. The way this bracket is designed is it will hold your console up high enough so that wires don't get pinched here in between the carpet, your center tunnel, and the bottom of the console. But also it allows the cup holder to be bolted in on the highest position, which also helps miss the center tunnel as it goes into the tunnel cover area. If you had this lower, sometimes it can hit the actual center tunnel of the truck. So this system just kind of works really well all the way around for positioning the console in a nice area. All right, I've got the console back in. This will be the final install. Obviously this truck isn't done with carpet or sound deadener or anything like that, so this will all be done over the carpet or whatever existing flooring you have. I do have the tunnel cover removed just so that I can show you know, easily bolted in. You can have somebody under your truck. You don't have to remove this panel. You can even leave your shifters in and do this. Just have somebody on the bottom side put the nut on the bolt. For the front, so for the front bolts we use 1/4 by inch long, and they'll just go through here, just kind of line it up where you're at. You'll stick them through the floor, and you can have your buddy on the ground, put the nut on the bottom, and you'll just snug that up. And then you'll put the rear bolts back in, get those all tight, and that will be basically the installation done. The next part will be putting in, if you're doing a charge port plate or your radio, you can start your wiring now that all the wiring is through the floor. You can start doing that process. Next we're going to install the switch panel that we sell. If you don't have the CD player provision or the stereo provision, this panel won't be for you. But for this console it works great. It fits in the single DIN opening, and it allows you to have, a lot of times we'll run our heated seat switches on these outer. We'll always have a charge port in the middle, and then you also have auxiliaries, so if you had front and rear lights of some sort or any other auxiliaries that you want to run, you are able to do that. And this is really pretty simple. It just kind of slots in right here, and you'll have to lift up a little bit, kind of jiggle it in there. But it looks really nice, it fits really well, and then we'll actually just attach it with 2 screws at the very bottom. And this is our charge port that we use. It's a dual USB charger. Nice little feature. It fits in a normal switch provision. We usually just run those right in the middle there. Obviously you'll finish up all your wiring, leave this, connect the panel to the console, and then you'll plug your switch in, and that'll fit down in there nicely. Same with these switches. They have the little notch on them to index them. We have, this panel can be flipped over so you can run your switch either way, whichever way you prefer. And those will fit right there in the side. Same thing with the wiring. So it's just a nice finished look and a nice way to run your switches where you're not looking down at your stereo. We usually run our radios in the dash. It's kind of dangerous to look down at your radio while, you know, the road's going on. So if you're just flipping a switch and you know where it's at, you can flip this open real quick, flip your switch, lights on, plug your phone in, whatever you need to do. And it's a lot safer than running your radio down there. Another option you have on our website is the rear charge port holder. Same double USB charger, fits in there pretty nicely, clips right in. These will actually bolt into the rear mounting bolts on the center console, and it just slots right in here. Looks really nice, kind of cleans up the back. If you had any wiring under there, it'll hide that pretty well too. And you'll just reattach the 2 mounting nuts there. Then you'll just snug those up with a wrench or a socket. That's a nice way for your rear passengers. You know, they can plug in whatever accessories they have. You got kids, they have tablets, they need charged. It's just a nice option to have. And we usually tie those 2 together. Charge ports don't take much voltage, so when you're wiring the front one, you can just wire the rear one in with it. And it's just another nice option. Another key part of the design of this rear foot support for the center console is the provision for a seat belt. We run our Corbeau 3-point seat belts when we do our roll bars and any of our conversions. You can also run lap belts off of this. The riser, it's a nice height right here for the seat belt receptacle. I don't know what they're called. The clicky bit. That part of the seat belt will bolt directly here and give you kind of a nice angle to where when you're sitting in the seat, it's easy to grab and click in. Works really well with our Corbeau seat belt system that we install in most of our swap trucks. Here's the finished product. Charge port and auxiliary switches are in this truck. This truck has front and rear lights, so we ran the harness and those switches in those positions. Front foot mounts really well and clears the shifter, all the shift knobs, everything. You can have your drinks there. Nothing's going to get bumped when you go to shift gear. The rear foot also incorporates the seat belt mount. which is at a nice height. This truck does have Corbo seats, but even stock height seats, the seat belts line up really nicely, and it feels like a modern vehicle when you buckle in. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this was helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. And all of these products that we used in today's video are available on our website at anythingscout.com. All right. So, I don't know how you want to shoot this. I can just hold the, basically show where